Hey there, Filter Coffee Finance. It's Rahul here. A few months ago, a younger version of me, one without the facial hair, had a chance to interview Yash Malkan, CFA. Yash was also a graduate from MIT Manipal. In fact, he was 3 years senior to me. In fact, there was probably a point where both our paths crossed when we were back on campus. I reached out to him to just have a chat, but he was so approachable that we ended up getting on call instead. The following 30 minutes is a result of just that call. Let me tell you what you can expect to listen to in this video. In the following video, you'll get to hear about his school days, how he navigated through engineering in Manipal, his early days at Goldman Sachs, as well as his journey to getting the CFA charter. Spoiler alert, but just said that he studied for only 150 hours in each level, and all of this he did while working full-time at Goldman Sachs. What a guy. Put this video on 1.5x speed for the best viewing experience. I hope that you enjoy. Thanks guys. So Yash, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Basically, I'm from Bombay and I studied in Manipal, same as you, and I've done my undergrad in IT engineering. I think we can talk about that later, but I realized through my course that I wasn't really interested in IT, and I was always looking to move into finance or consulting, and then that's how I ended up at Goldman. And I've been in Goldman for 4 years now. And at the same time, I decided I want to pursue my CFA along at some point. So I got that done. And I recently moved to New York. So that's been a change. It's been around 6 months here now. So yeah, it's been a welcome change.
Yeah.
That's a little bit about, yeah.
So like you picked engineering, and then like once you did your engineering degree, you realized you wanted to do something else. At least like every engineer out there
Yeah,
ever.
like maybe, yeah, maybe not after 4 years, midway through it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not that I was made to do engineering or something. It's just that I probably did not give it enough thought before
Yeah.
starting my undergrad, because at that point I thought it'd be something that I'd be interested in, but yeah, it did not turn out that way.
Honestly, the same. I think I have the same story. We had
Okay.
COVID in 2020, and during the lockdown, especially, like, it was a lot of time to just sit and reevaluate like life decisions. And you just realize like you're
Okay.
probably going down a path that like doesn't really suit you, like and
Okay. Yeah.
and like
Makes
yeah, I
sense.
can totally relate to that. So
Yeah.
just like to like maybe loosen up the interview and like just like get going,
Yeah.
loosen up the conversation. I'm gonna ask like a few rapid fire questions, okay?
Yeah. Sounds
So
good.
if you're ready, we can get going.
Yeah.
Okay, so use any three words to describe yourself.
Ambitious. Uh, 3 words. Oh my God, that's tough. Friendly and inquisitive. You put me on the spot. I wasn't really prepared for the rapid fire, but yeah, let's go.
Speaking of putting in the spot, what's your biggest fear? Like, what's the biggest fear that you have?
No, failure.
Failure.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay, and like one hobby that you have that you probably never want to stop keeping up with.
I actually don't have a lot of hobbies lately that I've still kept on, but at least growing up, reading used to be one of them. And I used to
Yeah.
play a lot of chess. So I used to play inter-school chess. And then for the first year in Manipal, I continued playing it. But since then, I think I play it for fun sometimes, but it's just died out. And yeah, latest passion would be watching F1. But yeah,
Okay.
that's about it.
Oh, damn. So, like, which team do you support in F1? Like,
Uh, yeah, more than a team, I used to support Daniel Ricciardo, so that's
oh,
not gone
bad.
well
Yeah.
for me. But yeah,
Yeah. He's the reserve driver at Red Bull right now, right?
yeah,
Maybe you'll get to see him at some
so
point this season.
yeah. As much as some people might hate me, I'm rooting for Perez to not do well so that Ricardo gets the second driver seat. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
I think Perez is still like a very likable character. Some people like him more than Verstappen,
Yeah,
but Verstappen's just a
yeah,
beast. So like can't hate the player.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And like so this is another rapid fire question, but like where do you see yourself in 1 year? Like combining everything that you've answered in the previous questions, like where do you see yourself in 1 year? Or like
Um, yeah, the same thing, nothing new. Where I am right now. If you would have asked me this question a year ago, my answer probably would have been slightly different. But given the whole New York thing's been pretty new for me, I
yeah,
don't have any 1 year plans as of now.
just settling in, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So Now, like, I'd like to like maybe go back a few years and like a little bit like so that our viewers can get a history of like where you're coming from, how your thought process is developed, and like like all of that's really important because how you think when you were younger like kind of shapes who you become later on also. So, what was your schooling like? Like what was your schooling like? Which streams did you do? And did you always know that you were going to get into engineering?
Okay. Yeah, schooling, I think I really like my school. In fact, some of my everything, like I think my school's been a part of how I've shaped up as I've grown. And even some of my closest friends are still from my school. And so I studied in a school close by to my house till third grade. And then my school started a IGCSE board, and I decided to move there. And that's where I ended up till 10th. So I think the benefit over there was always that the class was 20 to 25 people.
Yeah.
And overall, my year, my batch had 50 people when I started in fourth grade, and we ended up at like 75 in 10th grade. So, it was always a smaller batch size. There were a lot of opportunities to try out new things, always participate in competitions. And that was something I was always interested in, and having that platform, having that exposure helped out. So, it was a good starting point to just, I don't know, like launch myself into the world. And yeah, so that's how it started. Uh, I, I studied science till 10th grade, but I also had economics and French in my school. I always found economics interesting, but really after 10th, I did not have much of an idea of what I wanted to do. And I did not have coding in school actually, but I like logical stuff and I like solving logic puzzles and all of that. So I always thought that coding would be something I'd like. And yeah, that did not turn out that way. So that's
Yeah.
how I landed at my engineering decision. I was very sure I did not want to go into medicine. I don't really find biology interesting. I was not ready for, like just shutting down everything and focusing on that part. But yeah, I just decided that engineering would be something I'd like. Did not turn out that way.
Yeah, so like expectations, reality, there's always a mismatch,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and when you're so young, sometimes the choices that you make, like, are they ever influenced by other people, or it's like, how does it work for you? Like, you come to these decisions yourself, or like, did you speak to people before you went into like choosing engineering?
I I did speak to a few people, but probably not as many people as I should have spoken to. I'd also considered going to like a career counselor or two, but by the time like I got an appointment with someone, I'd already set my mind on engineering.
Yeah,
I think what the real problem is, at least for me, I've never had parents who forced me to study a particular a branch or something, so I've had that flexibility. But then at the same time, I feel as someone who was 16 back then, I did not realize the implications of, having to be sure about what you want, and more than the implications, just about giving it enough time. So I think that's what everyone should be careful about, that, when you're that young, you think it does not matter, but you should take your time and figure out what you really like.
absolutely. Like when you're faced with so many different choices, like what I've noticed is like if the more options that are available to me, and like I'm not being like necessarily pushed in a direction, it's really difficult to avoid the decision fatigue and like actually make a choice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like when you're that young, like I'm just imagining it's the same thing, but like three times or four times worse.
Yeah, that's totally true. And yeah, to your point, a lot of people get into engineering and then decide what they want to do. So I think, obviously, like too late for me, too late for you. But I think that's something that at least the next generation should really be cautious about. And I feel in this decade, it's also a lot of other um, areas really have a lot of opportunity for people. You could really do anything that you want. Even the creator economy has been going so well because of Instagram and everything. So I feel it's very important to pursue your passions and like follow it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more scope for like taking a chance, and even if things don't work out,
Yeah,
there's always an opportunity to bounce back, like, and that's the amazing
yeah,
thing.
yeah, definitely.
So now, like, once you get into engineering, you go to Manipal. What is the experience like? How did you find your 4 years?
Um, Manipal was good overall. I was quite happy with it. Although to be honest, I don't. A lot of people might not agree, but by the end of the 4 years, I was done with Manipal. But yeah, for me, I think you know, honestly, growing up to what I said earlier, I've never had issues of freedom or something at home. Like my parents have been very flexible, and I came from Bombay, right? So
Yeah.
that way, for a lot of people, university is like freedom. But for me, it was from coming from a place like Bombay to getting restricted in like such a tiny town and being restricted to like 10 restaurants to eat at and all of it. So I feel that bit was a change. Uh, the good part about Manipal was, in school, in that 75 student batch and in a 900 people school, I was always very popular and, I had things my own way. And at least in the first semester, when you come to Manipal, it's like 2,000 people in your batch, 8,000 people in the campus. So it puts things into perspective because, it's like a restart. Nobody knows you over there, right?
Yeah.
You may have a few friends, but otherwise it's hitting a reset button and, again, working up. So that way, I think, at least while the city or the town might have been small, the fact that, it's such a huge student campus, it just gives you perspective and helps shape you in a way, I feel.
Yeah, I think like this is how I looked at it. When you're in school, like no matter how big or small your school is, you're always going to be, if you're popular, you're a big fish in a small pond. But then once you head to
Yeah.
Manipal, you're a really small fish in a huge pond. Like it's
Yeah.
up to you to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of growing, like how did you spend your 4 years in Manipal? Like
Yeah.
what did you spend your
So
time doing?
yeah, so we've already established I did not really like IT. So I did spend a lot of time doing other things on campus. And like in the first year, activities wise, I started parliamentary debates and Model United Nations. And Model UN was one of the things that I really wanted to do even when I was in school, but I hadn't had the opportunity to. I'd done a lot of quizzing and like speaking competitions and all of those English events, but I never got a chance to do a proper Model UN. And I started doing that. I started it because of Summit Manipal. And then I ended up doing, I think, 7 or 8 of them in like a 2.5 year period. I also luckily got the opportunity to like co-chair a MUN in Poland when I'd gone there on my internship. So doing that in a different country obviously was a great experience. And apart from that, I think the most important part of my 4 years at Manipal has been IST. So it's I'm sure you're aware of, but for everyone else,
Yeah,
like
of
it's
course.
basically an organization that offers paid technical internships to students abroad. And I ended up joining the local committee in the first year, and then in the second year, I was a part of the junior board. So that's also and after 2 years, like in the summer, in the summer break between second year and third year is when I went to Poland on an internship. It was uh, I had friends, obviously, because a lot of people had gone on internships around that time. But in a way, it's still like being alone, right? Like
Yeah,
it's probably the only time I've really like solo traveled. I always had friends on trips, but the whole thing, or 2 months, 2.5 months outside the country by yourself. So I think it was a great experience. Also traveled a lot around Europe, so that had been good. And then in the third year, I was in the national committee for IST. So I again got to go to Berlin for a conference and being a delegate for India over there. So that was again a great thing. So most of my time has been spent on
yeah,
IST and then a little more in other clubs and these activities.
yeah.
I think the main part about Manipal is that there are a lot of opportunities. So as long as you're willing to put yourself out there and do something, you will find something that you like and want to do. So.
Yeah. So
Oh, and
after
yeah, for first year, I also spent a lot of time playing games on computers in the hostel. But
okay.
yeah, I moved out in the second year, so then I was able to focus on more productive pursuits. But
Yeah, makes sense. So like now you mentioned that you were a part of IST and you took part in you got a few technical internships through them. So all of this would have probably like helped you rule out things that you either wanted to do or things that you didn't want to do, right? How was that?
uh,
Like how were the internships?
yeah, I think so. I did one internship, which was in Poland, and it was at a very small software development company. And honestly, it wasn't a bad experience. It was a good
Okay.
experience. But I was sure that I don't want to do a career in IT. But it's not that I hadn't been studying at all. Like I was attending classes,
Yeah.
unfortunately for the 75% attendance. So and the people over there were super friendly. So it was a good internship. And yeah. Uh, it was supposed to be a software development, or a web developer internship. But halfway through it, they also want, and I was supposed to be on JavaScript and everything. But halfway through it, they wanted me to try out some Node.js stuff for them, and I had absolutely no idea about it at that point. But also the fact of like to begin with, I was not really that keen on IT. And on top of it, at the end of the day, I was only 1 year into my IT course, right? Because I went at the end
Yeah.
of my second year. So that way it was a little bit, it was challenging, but obviously they were there to help around, and also it was a good experience overall.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
like,
literally had like there were 6 people apart from me, and I was their intern, and it was a very tiny office. They had a dartboard, a coffee machine, and yeah, that was about it. But it was a good experience.
and 2.5 months is like complete strangers, completely different culture, and then
Yeah,
like you pick up so much, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, and everyone was very friendly. Yeah, definitely like I was outside my age group in that room, but otherwise like everyone was super friendly and went out of their way to make me comfortable. So it was good.
yeah. So all of this would have somewhat prepared you for like when placements came around, and when you got placed, you got into Goldman Sachs. What was good about the whole placement process, and like how did you get placed in
Yeah,
GS?
I think the good part specifically for me was that I ended up at Goldman. Goldman was the place that I wanted to be. My first preference was Goldman, and followed by ZS Associates, Deloitte, because I was only looking at finance, consulting, and those were the areas that I was looking at. And yeah, the downside was like I had Goldman as my preferred company, but with how placements work in general, there's always so
Yeah,
much uncertainty. And at least during my year, uh, we came to know almost 2.5, 3 months into the placement season that okay, Goldman is finally coming for the role. So that was obviously a tough part because at 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 one point you have to start being rational, right, about whether you can wait out for one company or explore other options. And plus, especially for CSIT, the placement season literally
yeah,
starts with those branches. So that way, I think it's difficult in a way, but then at
yeah,
the same time I was kind of clear on what I wanted. So, and I think in the first 2 weeks around like 50% of CSIT gets placed because most of the companies have like back to backs on during the first 2 3 weeks. So that way obviously like it's slightly tough. I was again like I was not competitive in the sense that oh, I want to get placed before everyone else, but then obviously there's a little bit of uncertainty as time passes,
yeah,
right? That you obviously
absolutely.
don't even want to end up being not placed. So that way, and more than that, the bigger issue for me was, like what if Goldman does not come? Then you've messed up both ways. And
Yeah,
I did sit for like one or two other companies quite later on, but luckily by then there was Goldman on the portal, and I got in. That was the other good
super.
part. But yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like once you get placed, you get your first job and you move to Bangalore. Like, what is the experience coming to Bangalore like?
I think it's a good city in general. And obviously, for me, the issue is if I compare Bangalore to Manipal, it's great. But if I'm comparing Bangalore to Bombay, I still
Right.
prefer Bombay any day.
Yeah.
Like, but otherwise, Bangalore is a good city. I think so many things have opened up. I really like going out, going out for eating at like good places, fancy places on the weekends, and obviously like some bit of drinking and everything on Friday nights. So that way, Bangalore does offer a lot, and new places are opening up all the time. So that way, I don't think that there's anything less to do in the city. And but the traffic, the dust, all of that at one point it was like just too much. So yeah, I
So
don't miss Bangalore.
I'm guessing you were put up like somewhere in your office or somewhere in Bellandur or
Yeah,
HSR or something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. How would you describe like, your early years working for Goldman? Like,
All right. Yeah. No, I think like it's been a great experience overall. Everyone was very supportive, and a lot of people from Manipal end up at Goldman, and especially in the team that I worked in. So around like 40, I interned in a different team, but I'm talking about the team that I ended up with, and that team around like maybe 40% of the team was Manipal. So everyone was around my age group, so it was obviously very easy to like uh, gel with everyone and like just have a yeah like have a good team around.
yeah,
And I think yeah, Goldman is a very office place. Like in general, like Goldman is not a huge fan of work from home. They'd rather have people in
yeah,
the office,
absolutely.
and that's something I feel. For a lot of batches after me, like when we have juniors, a lot of them prefer that. Oh, there are so many companies that let you work from home in tech. But honestly, it's underrated. Like just being in an office around people and the amount that you can learn, that's just underrated. So I'm lucky. I feel lucky that I had, a year and a quarter in before we went into COVID. So I knew, what I was missing out on. So when COVID happened, like the first thing that I wanted to do was like get back to office as soon as possible.
Yeah, and like I'm guessing like it was during this point that you spoke with people and found out about the CFA charter and like the CFA program.
Yeah,
So
and actually I decided to get a CFA before I basically after I was placed into Goldman and before I joined. So I had spoken with a lot of people back then, and I decided to like work on getting a charter. But yeah, even at the firm, there were a lot of people who were in the process of getting one, and I spoke with them, and that helped out.
yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up giving my level one in November 2019, but my level two exam got cancelled three times because of COVID. So overall, that caused a lot of delay in getting the charter.
Yeah. So like how long did it take you to like complete I believe you did your level one in November, but like when did you get your
Yeah, so
CFA charter?
level one was in November 2019. Then after three cancellations, I gave level two in on November 2021. And then I gave level three in May 2022. So that's
Yeah.
when I got done. And I applied for a charter a little later, but I got it in January this year.
So how did you approach the whole thing? Like a lot of people have this question, how do you balance work with studying, with like, having a social life, with like everything? How did you take care of yourself, work, and then also study? How did you go about it?
Okay. Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, for this bit, I'm not the best person to ask because I'm used to, keeping everything for the to the last minute. And uh, although I'm different, I just my general advice is always it's better to like plan it out and, study it slowly and get through it. But I'm just not used to it. I've also been a good test taker generally. So, I just I tend to push everything, and as long as I get done, it does not improve the next time because at some point, if you're able to like get done once, you just feel that that'll happen again. So, and honestly, with work, it's difficult to study on a day-to-day basis, right? So instead of doing an hour and a half every day for like 3, 4 months, what I did was I started studying for most of my exams, maybe 1.5 month prior to the exam, and did like an hour on the weekdays. And then I'd always, yeah, for each and every level, I've had like 12 to 14 days off before the exam. And that's when I really get most of my studying done. So, yeah.
Yeah. So like most people, like, there's this average statistic saying that people need 300 hours to like study for the CFA exam, each
Yeah.
level and pass it. I think you're one of the people bringing the average down, like the amount of time.
Yeah, I think it differs there because yeah, there'll be people who tell you that you should aim to study 450 or 600 hours. I've probably done like 150, 160 hours for each exam, maybe like 200 hours of studying, but 150 hours, 160 hours of actual studying because the first 2 weeks that you start studying, it just takes you time to like settle in. Yeah, again, like to your point, like I don't propagate that everyone should like study it this way because I also I think one of the upsides for me was also after 4 years of engineering when I actually decided to do the CFA was also something that I was genuinely interested in. So and obviously there are 10 topics for the exam and not everyone likes each of those 10 topics. Everyone will like some, won't like some. But in general, for most of the course curriculum, I really liked it. I found it interesting. I saw it as a way of I've come from an engineering background. I'm in the finance world, and I saw CFA as a way of getting a very good overview of basics across the finance world and not just what I was working on. But yeah, so based on that, I think obviously like sometimes towards the end for some topics, there's that opportunity cost of whether you can study properly or you have to like
Absolutely. Yeah.
strategize to get through the exam. So that way I do prefer to start ahead. But yeah, somehow I've always ended up in that position. But yeah, like I would not, yeah, like I have studied fairly enough as well. So it's not like I don't know the curriculum or the course. But yeah,
Absolutely. It's like do as I say, not as I do, like it's just in general.
yeah. And yeah, and then obviously I feel for some topics, like I work in global markets. So things like equity, fixed income derivatives, they were very quick and easy for me. So it just helped, that some of it overlaps with what I do.
Just your bread and butter.
Yeah, kind of.
The next question is like, you're in New York, Goldman Sachs, New York, and at least to most people, that's a very rare role to get from like, especially when you come from engineering in India and like to get to go from Bangalore to New York. It's a huge step, you know. So how did your
Yeah.
CFA, how did your CFA, pursuing the CFA charter help you? Like, what did you do that like set you apart? I mean, if you want to get into that detail, but like, how did it
Yeah.
help you and how were you different?
I don't think it's very related. Like, I don't think CFA is a prerequisite to do my role. And I've been in the same role more or less in Bangalore and in New York. I do feel it helps me in general. I'm way more aware about like the world of finance and in general. I also CFA was back in 2019. I really did not spend time observing markets or following them on a daily basis. But now I do even, and I'm long done with my CFA. It helps to be aware at work, but it's not a prerequisite in every role that you need to know what's happening. But it's just that I've cultivated that interest. I follow a lot of things. I don't know if you know, but there is this there's a newsletter called Money Stuff on Bloomberg that Matt Levine writes, and it's again like it's a great. He writes on a different topic every day, and he'll put it
Yeah.
into so much detail, and it's a great read. So that I've just been very interested in a lot of things. As for the move, obviously, it's not very common and it's rare, but I feel for every opportunity, I think the way to differentiate yourself is to, always go that extra mile and get things done. A lot of people would be looking for an opportunity first and then they'd go and prove themselves. But that's not how it works. Like you have to bring your best foot forward all the time. And then at some point, like the right opportunity will just show up.
Yeah, like there's no such real thing as luck, you know. It's just like putting
Yeah.
yourself in these situations
Yeah.
more and
Like
more often,
obviously,
you know.
yeah. Yeah, like and obviously like opportunities come every now and then, and it everyone does not always get the same opportunity, but then to be available for them, you always have to like bring your best foot forward,
Absolutely.
and I think that's what most of it is about.
So, how has life been in New York? I think you moved about 8 months back, right? Like, how has it been in New York?
Yeah, October, and so yeah, 6.5 months, 7 months.
So how's it been in New York? And like, what do you do during your free time?
Yeah, it's been great. I've actually not traveled a lot yet. But I'm going to Miami at the end of this month. But I've spent some time exploring New York, and yeah, that's been good. It's been a welcome change. I was a little worried about the winter, but this year the winter was a lot more calmer compared to normal. So I think I saw snow on 2 days.
Okay.
That's about it. So it was a very peaceful winter.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
Miami, like I'm sure it's going to be something else. Spring
Yeah, I'm
break, I'm
also
guessing
doing
spring break
scuba
is going
diving
on.
there.
Oh, you're going
Yeah,
scuba
so
diving.
spring break will start. I'm also doing scuba diving over there, and I've never done it before, so I'm very excited about that as well. Hopefully,
Okay,
it's fun.
so do you have to get your PADI certification done, or like that's something that you've completed
No,
already?
so yeah, they have like a whole scuba diving experience, a 1 day thing. So in the
Yeah.
morning, they train you how to go about it, and you practice in the pool, and then they take you for like 2 dives in the afternoon. So
Wow.
yeah, we'll see
Pretty
how it
crazy.
goes.
I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll be
yeah,
amazing,
they
you know.
Yeah, they had a disclaimer on the website saying that normally sharks don't trouble people at all. But if you're worried about them, like there are ways, like they train you on how to be careful and all. And I was already worried by that by reading that. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a little bit of living on the edge, you know. Like when you go to a different place, it's always great, like have different experiences that you might not easily get,
yeah,
especially at home. Like and amazing, like you know, so happy that
yeah,
you can experience that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a while since I've traveled, so I'm excited.
Yeah. The last question I'd have is looking back at everything, looking back the whole journey. If you had any advice for your younger self, maybe when you're like 15, 16, 17, or even 18, you know, what would the advice be? And like, why are you suggesting it to your younger self?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I'm not that old yet. I think I have like
Yeah,
another five
exactly.
to 10 years before I can start giving advice. And but yeah, I just say that you know it's like to what I started with earlier. You should focus on your passion and what you really want to do. But once you decide what it is that you want to do, like give it your best shot and like give it everything. Because yeah, like it could be anything, but you have to give it your everything. There's, I mean, we literally spoke about the creator economy when I started with, and you'll see Instagram. There are so many influencers who become popular. You'll see people who are like 15 years old, there are 18 years
Yeah.
old, 25 years old, or 50 years old, right? But I think the one thing common would be that they'll have a new reel or a new post almost every day. So it's just, whatever you want to do, like just go at it with everything. Obviously, that does not mean forget everything. I'm one of the I'm a huge proponent. I regularly have arguments with my mom about this, but you should also live life while you're working or whatever it is that you're doing. There's I think at least most of our parents, like how they've grown up, is that you struggle for the early years of your life and
Yeah.
then you have a good life. But yeah, I've always been like, of course, like I recommend saving and planning and all of it. You should do all of that, but at the same time, you should also enjoy life. Nobody knows how long they're going to live. There's so many uncertainties in life. Nobody knew COVID was going to happen, right? Like back in 2019, I did not know I'd be stuck at home for 11 months. We would not travel outside for like a year and a half. So yeah, like uh, a balance of everything is good. You should just know what the line is. Better draw the line.
Honestly, yeah. There's always a trade-off with everything. And like
Yeah,
I guess if you're pursuing success, like you'll be willing to like sacrifice other areas. But like I guess what
yeah,
you're saying is it's always better to have a more rounded, holistic approach to life, because that's what's
yeah.
more fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm in office, I give my everything to work. Sometimes if needed, like even if I'm on leave, I'll log in for an hour or two if I need to work on something. Because at the end of the day, if you're working on projects or something, you're taking ownership for it, right? So even if nobody else is expecting you to do something, you need to like make sure that you're progressing there. But then at the same time, I'll make sure that if I have 25 leaves in a year, I take them when I want to travel. I'm not one of those people who will be supportive of that, oh, I'm not going to take my leaves, I'm just going to come in every day and work. So you should know the balance and you should get everything done well.
So I guess always go above and beyond.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's probably not to my younger self as if we had done most of that anyway, but it's more like general advice. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for my younger self, I just say that things eventually fall in place as long as you have the right mindset and you're doing the right things. You will eventually get the right opportunity. So yeah, like you don't have to panic too much about everything. Just do your
Yeah.
best and eventually things fall in place.
So this is so refreshing, man. Like a lot of the thoughts, I think we share like really similar thoughts, and that's so nice. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
yeah.
the conversation, Yash. Like,
Yeah, I hope I haven't been talking too much, and I hope this is
not at all.
where I was supposed to go, like not an interview expert. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
new for me.
No, the really nice thing is it was a conversation. Never felt like, like I was
Yeah,
forcing a topic and all. Like, just a flow, and it was so cool. I think
yeah,
it came out
definitely.
very naturally. And
Yeah,
so anyway, Yash, thank you so much for your time, man. Again, like I'm sure there are a lot of useful bits here. Like we can always like connect again, chat again. Like maybe we'll have a call in like another 3 years. And you'll be senior VP at GS or something like that. Like we can just
yeah,
talk about
yeah,
your
yeah.
experience over the last 3 years. It's our last call. Like that's what's
Yeah, yeah, we'll
yeah.
see, but yeah, maybe. But yeah, thank you for having me. It's obviously first interview, but it's been a great experience, and I hope this is helpful to someone at least.
Yeah, likewise. My first interview, my first time taking an interview, and I had a blast. You know?
Okay, cool.
Okay. See you, man. Take care. All the best.
Bye. You too. Bye. Yeah. Have a good day.
You too. See you.